The latest version of the Foundation framework has just been released, and as part of the Foundation site there are some example templates, and these show how to use Foundation to create a variety of layouts. So I thought I'd use one of these layouts to demonstrate a number of features of the Perch template language. So I'm going to use this agency template, and you can see that there on the Foundation site. So these are kind of bare bones layouts that you can then start to customize yourself. My starting point with Perch is that I've already installed Perch, and it's just the default installation. This would be exactly the same if you were using Runway. We're just looking at templates here. And this is the agency.html page that I've downloaded, and I'm going to rename that and make it our home page. So I'll rename that to index.php. And then I need to add the Perch runtime, and you'll see an example of that in the download on example.php, which is just an example Perch page. So we can take that, and that needs to be right at the top of my page there. I've got my site here, and if I reload, there we go, we've got this Foundation page. Now this is basically just the HTML document that we downloaded. It loads in Foundation from the CDN, so you don't have to add anything else here. So the first thing I'm going to look at with Perch is this big sort of call out section here at the top. And if we scroll down in the file, we can find that. It's this here, it says call out large, you can see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of that and I'm going to create a Perch template. So we do that in Perch templates content, where you can see our example templates that we put in. Create a new file, and I'm going to call this one call out large, and just paste in the HTML. So now we want to make that content editable, and we do that with some Perch template tags. Now this is the smart text type, which will give you nice curly quotes and things, but it won't add any other formatting. And then I think we can use the same type for this sort of single line strap line we've got here. And I've got some buttons here. We've got two buttons in the example. We've got a large button with Learn More, and then this large hollow, which is the sort of empty wireframe button, says Learn Less. Now what I could do is I could just make these editable in the same way as my heading and my strapline, and make it so that when the content editor comes and uses this template, they have to fill in two buttons. There's no other choice there. They've got to give a URL and the text for two buttons. But what might be nice and make this more reusable is if the buttons are optional and they can add maybe 1, 2 or 3 buttons in here, and we can do this with a Perch Repeater. So a Perch Repeater creates a small repeating element, and we need to give it an ID, so let's call this one buttons. And we can say a maximum number if we want, so let's say max 3, because we don't want to have hundreds of buttons here. And then give it a label that will show up in the admin. And then we need to have one of our buttons here. So we can now make the button itself editable. So we'll make this just text. So this here will let the admin actually fill in the URL they want to go to. And this will let them write their own text for the button. Now that should allow them to add up to 3 buttons, or have no buttons at all if that's what they want in this sort of big call out. In the second button though, we had this extra class, this class of hollow, which showed that this was a button that was just like a wireframe. And we can do this, we can allow the admin to decide whether they want their button to be a filled in button or a wireframe button. So I'm going to do this by adding a Perch content type of select. Now if we set allow empty equals true, this means they don't need to select it. And so we're going to give it one option at the moment, and that's hollow. Now I've used a select type here rather than say a checkbox to just say it's hollow or not, because it may be that in your design you want to have some other types of buttons. So if we use this, then all you'd need to do is come back and add any other classes here that you want to use. So if we save that, and then we go back to our index.php, and we're going to need to replace this with a Perch region. So delete all the markup there. And we add our Perch region. I'm going to call this one Homepage Feature. Then we're going to go to our page and reload the page, and you can see that that top area has now disappeared. But if we go into Perch Admin and reload it, we can see our home page is there, and we've got this new region, Homepage Feature. So if we choose Homepage Feature, we can now find our template that we just created. That's call out large, and submit. So now you've got somewhere to add a heading. So we can go and add the heading from the template, and we'll do the same with the strapline. And here you can see we've got our call to action buttons, and this is the repeater. So you'd add a link here, decide if you want it hollow or not, and fill in the text. And then we can save this. Then if we go back to our page and reload it, you can see that we've now got this header area with the 2 buttons, and we're back to really where we started, except now this can be edited within Perch. Now you've created this template, you wouldn't just need to use it on the home page there, you could use it anywhere on the site where you wanted to have this big sort of call to action feature. So if you carry on down the page, we've got this section here. So this is kind of a 2-column section. We've got a large image here, and then we've got this section here of text, and then below it we've got 3 columns here really of text. So this is Photoshop, JavaScript, marketing, where you might put some of the services that your agency does. So let's see how we might make this editable using Perch. So I think we'll start with the image and the text section. So we can once again do the same thing. We're going to create a template. So we select all of that section. And again, we're going to create a content template. And I'm going to call this one image text.html. So here we've got a heading, and we've got some text here. So the heading I think could be smart text. I could just use this one from here. It's the same tag. And then this content, I want people to be able to use some sort of formatting, so I'm going to use Markdown here, and I'm going to use the Mark It Up editor. So we'll make this a text area, which will give them a large area to fill in text. So say markdown is true and editor is Mark It Up. You could always use a WYSIWYG editor here and let them enter HTML, or you could use no editor if you didn't want any extra HTML getting in. It's really up to you. So we'll save that one and go back to the index page, and let's take this next section. This is the 3 column section, so we'll take all of that. And we'll make another template here. Let's call this one cols3.html. So I think here I'm going to use a Perch Repeater again, just like we did for our buttons, because this will mean that the editor can choose how many of these column sections they're going to put in, and it will be arranged in this 3 column way. So we can delete all but one of the columns, and we're going to use that Perch Repeater again. Now I'm going to add that outside of the row markup. And then this part here is the actual part we want to repeat. But before the repeating section, we want to have this row. And so what we can do is we can use Perch Before and Perch After to only output these if some columns have been entered. And we do the same with the closing div with Perch After. So these tags are really useful to make sure that you don't have markup inserted when you haven't added any content. So now this section is the part that's going to repeat, so we need to make that editable. Once again, we've got a heading, so we can just use the heading for that. And again, we've got some text here. Now you can set a size on text areas, which can help your editor to realise kind of about how much content might need to go in. So let's make this one small, because we don't want these to be used for huge amounts of content. And then we can save that. We've added all our text items. We now need to deal with this image. Now Perch allows us to add images to our documents and gives us some control over the size of those images, allows us to crop them. And so we have a template tag which is the image type. I'm adding this into the SRC, into the source of this image. So you can add here the height that you want the image to be. And the width. So I'm just using the ones that Foundation were using for their example image. And if you'd like Perch to crop the image, if it's too big so it will exactly fit those dimensions, you can set crop equals true. And that will only happen if the image that's uploaded is bigger than those dimensions. We obviously don't try and upscale or stretch images. Now this image here doesn't have an alt attribute. Now I'd like my images to have an alt attribute, so we can add that. And we just use some text for that. So that should be everything for this template. So we've now got two templates. They've got text elements in, they've got image elements in. We're using a repeater in here. Now if we go back to index.php, a reasonable choice would be to add two more Perch content calls and have one for this section here, the image and text, and another one here for our 3 columns. And that would mean that when the editor came to the Perch admin, they wouldn't have any choice about the design or layout of this page, they'd just have to fill in the 2 sections. And that might be fine, that might be what you want if you've got a design that you don't really want someone messing around with. However, there's something else that we can do. We can create a blocks template, and what this does is it gives the content editor a choice of which type of templates they use, and they can rearrange them. And this works really, really well with frameworks like Foundation or like with Bootstrap, where you've got these different patterns and you can create templates, add them to a blocks template, and then give your editors a little bit of freedom in terms of how they build up pages. That can be quite useful. So a blocks template is just like any other template. We create that in content. And I'm going to call it Foundation Blocks. So inside this template we have Perch blocks, and then we start adding our blocks. So the first block, let's have our 3 columns. We'll call this one 3 col. The type is really just like an ID for the block, and then give it a label so that this is what will actually appear in admin, so they know which one to choose. So if you make this descriptive in some way. Now inside the block here you can just write template markups. You could just create a template, you could have your entire 3 column template just in here. But there's another way to use this. We can include other templates, and I like to do this because it means I can create templates that can be used individually, just the Perch region and that template used, or they can be used within blocks. So it makes your code really reusable. Again, this is so useful when you're working with some kind of framework and you've got these fixed patterns that you can use. So we can basically include one template inside another. So this is our first block, which is for that 3 column template, and we can basically just copy this and now change this for our image text. And then save that. And then if we now go back to index.php, we're going to remove all of this section. So that's the 2 sections of HTML that we've now turned into templates. And we'll add one Perch region here. Homepage content. And now that's all disappeared, so we've now got this editable header and our content area has disappeared. So we can see we've now got another new region appeared. So we can go back to the homepage, homepage content, and here's our foundation blocks. And on this page now we haven't got anything to edit, but we've got the option to add 3 columns or image and text. So if I select image and text, you can see now all the fields that we entered. We can select and upload an image, add the alt text, add a heading and a body with markdown. We'll add an image. And then we can add this content from the example page. And this is marked down, so if we wanted to format any of this, we could use the toolbar to do that. So that's our first section of the page. You can see now that the image has been cropped to the size that the original sort of placeholder was. We've got our text, it's been formatted as bold where we formatted. Then if we want to add a 3-column area, this is a repeater. Add the various things that we do, and then we save changes. Go back to our home page, and we've now got the 3 sections. And we could add more of these, we could add as many as we want. We could even drag these around and reorder them. So using blocks gives our content editors quite a lot of flexibility, and it's a really nice way to work with a framework like Foundation. So I've also got this little area here which is a sort of set of statistics, I guess, saying how many websites or apps have been built. And you can see that in the markup here. So I'm going to turn this into a little template as well. And we'll call this one Stats. And once again, I think I'm going to turn this into a repeater, so we can add as many as we like here. So I can delete all but one of the list items. And add my repeater. And just like the last repeater, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that needs outputting before and then after the part that we're going to loop. So we can use our before and after tags again. And then we just need to make our list items editable. So we've got a link here, we've got the actual statistic, and then kind of a label for it. So I'll copy out a tag from that template because it's a similar thing we're doing there. So we've got text, this is the value, and then we need to give it a label, some text. And again, we can use sizes here. For instance, this is going to be small, it's going to be a number. So perhaps you want to make this one small. And perhaps the link and the label, the link might leave normal, and the label, let's do this one medium. It kind of helps to give a guide as to what you're expecting to go in there. And of course you can always add some help text using the help attribute here as well to guide your editors. So having done this, I think I'm just going to add this to the blocks template. So this can be another option when setting up blocks. You can choose to add this kind of stats panel. And we'll just include that template again. So if we go back to our homepage content region, we've now got the possibility of adding a statistics list. And here's our repeater. So here you could add the link, value and the label. Whatever else you want to add there, and save it. And then we'll need to go back to index.php and actually delete that. And there's our editable version. You can see how Foundation just spreads them out, so you could have 3 or 4 in here and it would spread them out evenly rather than bunch them all up in the corner. So finally we have these portfolio items here. So this is really just a grid of images. Now I could use a repeater like I've been using for the other repeating elements, but we've got different ways of looping through data in Perch, and another way of doing that is to use a regular Perch region, a regular Perch content region, and set that to allow multiples. And I think that's what I'm going to do for this section here, because at the moment they don't go anywhere, they're just an image. But perhaps in the future I might like to actually build this out and have a portfolio page that where you can click through. And so there might be a bit more information about each of these items. If I was using Perch Runway, I might put all that information into a collection. So I think what I'm going to do is create a template that allows us to add this image, which in future I could then expand out and turn into something a bit bigger as I build out my site. We need to start by building a template. So here's the markup. So as before, I'll select all of that and I'll create a new file. And we'll call this one Portfolio. And once again, we've got lots of placeholders here which we can delete. We only need one of them. And whether we're using a repeater or a repeating region in Perch, we can use the before and after tags. But we're not using the repeater, so we've got no repeater markup. We just put the before and after tags around the things we want to be output before and after. So this div class column is the part that will repeat. And then we've just got this image here. Now we can use exactly the same image tag that we created earlier, except this is a different size. This is square, it's 550 by 550. So let's change that here in the sizes. It's worth noting that Perch creates these sizes at edit time. It doesn't do that on the fly. So when you change this in your template and you upload images, that's when we create an image if there isn't one of that size there already, to keep your site nice and fast. So that's my template. We can go back to index.php and remove that whole section. And we'll call this one Homepage Portfolio. Go back to the page and reload. It's now disappeared and Perch knows it's there. Now we've got our new homepage portfolio. So here's our template, and we can check here allow multiple items and hit submit. So here's the place where we can add our image, and if we go into region options, let's take off edit all on one page. So when you've got multiple items, you can choose to edit them all on one page, or you can edit in list detail mode. It's really up to you. And there's some other options you can fill in here. So let's add some images. I can add this image to start with. Now you can see that our images here are going in as item 1, item 2, item 3. Now we can change that. We go back to our template. Now if we add title equals true to something, so let's do that to the alt because that's the text we've got. If we go back to our item and save changes, you can see that it now has taken the title, the alt text, has been used as that title. So you can add title equals true to anything that's got some text in like that. So that might be a heading in your template or something else that's some text, and that helps to identify and saves you having this kind of item 1, item 2, item 3 business going on. So we've now got our items here, and if we go back to the home page, you can see that they've been cropped square as we asked Perch to do. So that's a simple example of how we can use various Perch template features to start to build up our page using the foundation framework. And this would be exactly the same if you're using your own in-house framework, or you're taking over a site that's currently static and it's got lots of different patterns you need to turn into templates. It'd be exactly the same process you'd need to follow. And some of the features we've looked at here are repeaters. We've looked at Perch before and after. We've looked at regular repeating regions. We've looked at the template tag types, image and smart text, text select and text area. We've looked at blocks. And we've had a quick look at template includes. And there's lots more to know about Perch templates, so do have a look at the docs and see all the different things that you can start to be doing in your templates.